Your project or deliverable is only as good as it looks when a stakeholder pulls it up for status or reference. So let it always speak of your excellence, because remember, your name is on it. Make the process and the tools your best friend. The payback is super high. While important, processing tools do not replace human interactions. Have those conversations first. Always treat each other and your stakeholders with respect, even when holding them accountable. Accountability and collaboration are not mutually exclusive. Do both. Feedback is a gift. Make it feel that way when you give it. Last but not the least, we all win or lose together. There is no I in team.
Welcome to this episode of Life and IT Project Management YouTube channel, where we connect the dots between the life we experience and the IT project management delivering it. So both aspiring and experienced initiative drivers achieve real-world success. Today, we are thrilled to welcome a senior IT executive known for transforming enterprise operations and delivering impactful technology solutions. Kavita has led Fortune 100 PMOs, built high-performing teams, and driven strategic execution in regulated industries. She does bridge strategy and delivery, aligning people, processes, and tech to unlock real results. Thanks for joining us, Kavita.
Thank you for having me, Justice.
The audience would want to, first of all, get to meet you. And the first question I would definitely have would be, how did you first get into projects and leading projects? Let's hear a bit about your story.
Sure. So, like most people who start their careers in IT, I also started my career in IT as a programmer. So I did software development, then I moved on to doing, a tech lead role, and then I did system administration, network administration. So played a lot of different IT roles and different IT competencies before I got into project management. And when I did, it really just played well with who I am as a person. So when I started managing projects, what I realized is I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot more than all of these other roles that I played in IT. So from that point on, I have stuck into this profession. I have managed projects and programs and portfolios and set up PMOs and, taken over PMOs, done large scale transformations. And I just enjoy being part of this profession.
Awesome. Beautiful story. In your own experience, one thing is, yes, some may hear that, you had that benefit of having an IT background, right? Some aspiring PMs might not have that IT background, but, yours sounds typical, but we also want to encourage aspiring PMs that, yes, they could get in as long as they have a clear roadmap, and eventually you will get to speak to how they can access your services so that they are clear regarding the roadmap towards becoming leaders themselves. But we'll get there. We'll get back there shortly.
Sure.
Now, in your own experience as well, my next question will be, why did you choose to lead, larger projects? Or why did you choose to transition into being, for example, possibly a program? You did mention PMO lead and portfolio lead and so forth. Some technical project managers, they remain being technical project managers or senior technical project managers for as long as they don't want to deal with the bureaucracy and all that, right? So, but in your own view, what was the basis for the decision to build your experience that way?
I think what happened in my case, Justice, is, as you do and you're successful in implementing projects, you get more and more complex work thrown at you. And that's what happened in my case. So it was, okay, yes, you did a great job here. Now go, here's another one. This is bigger, more teams, more complex. And, that's how it goes from, I would say, project to program to portfolios to PMOs, because you're continuously learning and expanding. And I also feel like, it does depend a lot on our personalities. For some people, doing your technical project management works and, that's their sweet spot and their safe space and they want to continue doing that. Whereas for some people, the better, the more the challenge, the more they thrive in that challenge. And I would say I probably fall in that other category of where, yeah, it's more bigger, more complex. Bring it on. I want to try that and I want to see what do I learn from it. So I think that has played to how I went from projects to all the way to where I am today.
Growth is quite unique, right? An individual might, choose to remain a senior technical project or program manager, and they will grow being that, right? Another person would need to grow through the different scales of complexity, right? Now, leading to the next question, in your own case, in your own experience, how has leading different levels been, from project to program to portfolio leadership? How have things changed for you as you took on more responsibility?
Yeah, for me, the concept of the spheres of influence have played a big role. Very early on in my career, I'd read about it. It's a pretty common known concept, even in management and leadership. And I feel like as I grew into, from projects to programs to portfolios, I kind of, took that concept to heart and saw how that helps me, right? So as an example, if you know what I'm talking about, Justice, right? It's the three concentric circles and, at the lowest one, the smallest circle is your sphere of control. Then it's the influence, and then the third one is concern. So when at a project level, when I was a project manager, it was more about the control of my project, right? What is the scope, schedule, cost, right? Who are the resources on my projects? What are the deliverables? What are the milestones? And for the most part, it was within the controls or the parameters of the project. But then as you get, do more complex work and then do, bigger and broader work, when you go into, say, programs and portfolios, then yes, the control is not as important as that next sphere of influences. Because at this point, you've got to be able to be influencing your stakeholders, which in larger programs and portfolios, there are multiple stakeholders. Projects also have multiple stakeholders, but again, it's a much smaller control group. But when you think about programs and portfolios, now that control group is larger. Very many teams involved, very many projects involved within those programs and portfolios. In portfolios, you're going to have projects and programs involved. Your stakeholders, now you're going to be very much more focused broadly on, your business stakeholders, your technology stakeholders, your team members, your vendors, whoever is all the people you need. And at this point, your PMs that are managing the projects within those programs and portfolios, they are going to be focused on those individual projects, but your job now becomes to influence everyone that is involved. And now when you take it to that next level, when you get into, PMOs, whether you're establishing new ones, you're taking others on, or you're doing large scale enterprise-wide transformations, which in themselves are like super large and super complex programs. In those cases, now your sphere, that you operate in is your sphere of, concern. Because at that point, you are more focused on the external things that are going to start concerning whatever it is you're doing, right? If you're running a large scale transformation or a PMO, then you're constantly watching out for those external concerns and starting to think more in terms of at that organization level, right? At that point, it becomes more about, what else is going to impact the PMO or this transformation program, right? What are the external factors? What is going on in the company? Are the right goals and objectives in place to make sure this piece can be successful? Who else do we need to talk to, right? So I think those, to me, in my journey as a leader, those spheres of influence have played a very big role in how my leadership has.
Thank you so much for detailing that. For any program manager or project manager for that matter, thinking through career advancement plans, right? The ways that you have itemized what critical pieces will be different is also basically valuable, right? What you control different from how you influence what you're influencing, then that's also different from your sphere of concern. Those come with different scales of responsibility. That's really helpful. That's valuable there. Now, if we dial back a bit, then pick the cellular aspect of this, which is the project, right? The initiative driver. What does it really look like when someone is doing a great job, running or controlling an initiative, if I might use that phrase, right?
Yeah. So when you talk about projects, the most important thing, and I think this is PMI 101, a project has a start and end date. And, as a project manager, you're managing the scope, schedule, cost of the project. So what is important there is, A, do you know your scope, schedule, cost? B, do you have a plan? Because, that's the number one thing about a project or being a project manager. You've got to have a plan that, you know what your deliverables and milestones are. You know what resources you need, human resources versus other resources, right? If you have vendors involved, you have other, hardware purchases. So basically having a plan with all of your deliverables, your dependencies, that's your 101, right? But what makes a project really good or a PM really good is, are you able to navigate all of the changes that continue to happen? Because you can have a great plan. That does not mean the plan does not implement itself. That's why you need a PM. And good PMs, yes, they have a solid plan, but they also make your tools in your risks and issue management your best friends. They're there for a reason, right? If you are using, whatever tool, there are multiple tools PMs use. Microsoft Project is one of them. And in the market, there are many new tools today. But whichever tool you're using to manage your project, to manage your risks and issues, to manage your budgets, to manage your schedule, your Gantt charts, your milestones, all of those things together. And most important is, are you managing your stakeholders well? And again, stakeholders are not just your business partner, not just your sponsors, not just your IT partner. The team that is doing the work is also your stakeholder. So how are you managing the communications across all of these? And how are you, making sure that any given point in time, no matter which stakeholder, they all know exactly where the project is. Because guess what? If you can do that one thing, you are going to be a successful PM and you are going to have a successful project. Because most of the times the issues and risks, there are things in our control and not in our control, but it is how you manage them and how you communicate them. So I would say those would be the key elements, Justice. Yes, there is the bottom line of having a plan and everything, but it's the management, because you're a project manager and you're managing the project.
Beautiful, beautiful. Every definition of every project is change management, basically, right? Something has to change, something is improving, something is being upgraded, and so forth. And when this is being done, business stakeholders see a plan on paper. Some of them don't understand project management.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when things change, some can get flustered. Now, that flustering in some cases trickles down and the project team gets to hear of it. But a great project manager knows how to navigate the team through all the changes, keep things steady, keep the ship steady, right? Sailing in the right direction towards the right, desired goal, right? Now, in the middle of all this, and the project manager being great, doing all these things right, communicating well and all that, engaging with stakeholders, in the middle of all this, how does the PM keep the team focused when things get tough? When things get tough, it could be as simple as a process change, right? It could be as simple as that, right? So, but how does a great PM keep the team focused?
So the first thing I would say is, as a PM or as, in any role, celebrate the small wins. Every project or every initiative or every team, there are going to be ups and downs. So the way to keep your team focused and, to lead your team is celebrate the small wins. Yes, you're always going to have a big win when the project is done, but as you cross milestones off of your project plan, celebrate those. Let the team feel excited about checking off another milestone from the list. So celebrate the wins, keep the team focused and motivated in many different ways. For example, if you are in person, you could take the team out, for your lunches or breakfast or happy hours. Do it remote too. I mean, my last 6 years were remote, virtual. We had virtual happy hours. We also had virtual offsites because, at the end of the day, you got to connect as human beings to be able to work together, right? The other piece of advice I would have, especially when things go wrong, it's very important to not lose your focus from the big picture. Remind your team about why you're doing the project. What is in it for them? What is in it for the organization? When this project gets done, and it will get done, there is a small bump in the road. It will get done. And how do we recover from this bump? What changes do we have to do? Maybe we need to, re-baseline the plan. Maybe, there's a change request. So whatever it is that we need to do, lead the team through that and not make, little things, whatever issues pop up, things go sideways, not fester on that, but focus more on the big picture and how to get there. Lead the team through that. They will be very happy and thankful if you do that.
Awesome. I hear from your feedback, central to all this is communication, right? Is communication and being aware, the project manager being aware, and also leading some of this integration. I'll call them integration activities, team motivation activities, and so forth, right? Keeping them focused, regardless of whether they're going by traditional approach or agile approach. In agile, yes, embedded within agile, they have retrospective.
Yes.
But even with the traditional, they still have to have that communication, that retrospective, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Even with traditional, you don't have to wait to do lessons learned at the end of the project. You can do it at the end of every phase. So there are a lot of concepts, between waterfall and agile that the other side can borrow. Because at the end of the day, your methodology is only as good as what you deliver.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now we want to move onward, let me say, from controlling the variations of the nuances of projects going left or right and so forth. We want to move on to program leadership. Project manager might be lucky that you have one initiative and that initiative has several work streams, pieces that actually fit together, that kind of thing, right? Now, in that scenario, and that's different from a line of business conducting program leadership with across disparate work streams. The question will be, what does success in that scenario, what does success look like when you are leading lots of projects at once?
So in programs, your success looks different only because now the complexity is bigger. It's not just about one project, right? It's about several projects. It's about managing the dependencies between those projects. A big part, just like a project plan plays a crucial part in a project, your program roadmap plays a very crucial part. What is your program roadmap? What are those dependencies between the projects? What are those milestones that are, across your program, not just the project milestones, but the milestones across your program? What are those deliverables which are going to show that your program is progressing in the right direction? Is your program truly 20% done? Maybe you need to get 2 projects done for your program to be 20% done, or maybe you need to meet 5 milestones across 3 projects for your program to be 20% done. But what is understanding that scope and the roadmap of the program, highlighting what I would call the critical path of the program, not just your project. What are those milestones that your program needs to achieve so you're heading down the right? I think that I would say is big. Like I talked about when I talked about the circle of influence, that plays a huge role in programs and portfolios. And that role is, again, keeping the N number of hundreds of people in your organization on the same page about what's going on. As a program manager, you're going to spend a lot more time there than you would be doing managing a specific project, because your time is going to be spent on understanding those dependencies, understanding those milestones, managing stakeholders. Stakeholders may be pulling you in two different directions. How do you get your sponsor on board? So I would say the focus on the programs becomes more around the stakeholder management and managing those dependencies between the programs. Now, and as you alluded, right, Agile and waterfall programs mean different things in both of those methodologies. In your waterfall, a program is typically a collection of projects. But in Agile, typically a program is more where you have work across multiple teams. It could be 3 teams, it could be 20 teams. It doesn't matter. Each team is building out their own widget, but you need several widgets to come together in the right timeline and the right sequence for your program to be successful. So focusing on those at a program level is crucial. Leadership plays a part at every step of the way. In this case, you're providing leadership to your PMs, the PMs who are working on your programs. How are you planning and executing on this large program?
How do they balance short-term tasks? Or what should they know about balancing short-term tasks with long-term goals?
So your long-term goals, I would say, is the start of anything. Anything you do in projects, programs, portfolios is to understand those long-term goals. Because without that, you'll be checking off your short-term things, but you don't even know which path you're headed, right? So think of it as, a roadmap. That's why a roadmap is crucial when it comes to programs and portfolios, because you need to know where you're going. It's like your GPS. If you want to go somewhere, you have to put in where you're starting and where you're ending. That's the only way your GPS can help you. Similarly, your roadmap is the GPS for your projects and mostly programs and portfolios, because projects have project plans. So knowing that, keeping the focus, that big picture focus is important. So when you have the little things that come up, whether in projects or, your risks or issues, every time you're able to map that against the roadmap, map that against that big picture and understand the impacts those things are going to have. So yes, the short-term focus is needed. You need to manage your milestones, your deliverables at the projects, manage your dependencies, the risks and issues. But when you're at the program and portfolio level, you're very keenly focused on how are these things impacting the goals, impacting the roadmap of the program.
Awesome. Not to disclose too much, but I do know that and in your experience, you also know this. So many enterprises do have sort of like an enterprise PMO, right? An enterprise PMO to help coordinate, organize that planning. They will tell you, okay, fine. They will support, there'll be fiscal annual planning, right? And they will support a 3-year view, and you have critical projects and those come forward and they help the leadership prioritize and so forth. That's that. Now, when it comes to an agile enterprise that's truly agile, has it in a different way, program increments and so forth, right? So that could help. And any new PM or any aspiring PM that finds themselves in the different types of enterprises, they need to understand what works.
But whether it's a project, program, portfolio, doesn't matter. Do you know how what you're doing ties to your enterprise goals?
Yes.
To the enterprise objectives, the why. The why are you doing this, whether it's the portfolio, program, project. Now, portfolios are slightly different and we can get into that. But if you cannot tie the goals and the critical success factors of, your project or your program to the company goals, then that should be the first thing you go after. Go figure that out. Go find out the why are you doing this? How does this map onto that? Knowing that, it gives you that bridge in your mind and to even motivate your team, because you should be able to look at your company's goals or objectives for the year and say, hey, that goal number 5 on there is what this project is helping the company achieve. And when you bridge that whole at the company level down to your project program level, it inherently motivates the team, because you can see there is a real impact of why we're doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for providing more substance to that. That really is very helpful, and that will be very valuable for new PMs and even some experienced PMs changing enterprise, finding themselves in an enterprise, approaching delivery in a different way. Right? Thank you so much. Now on to one critical piece that could make so many portfolio leads, even some new portfolio leads, new program leads go crazy, and that is stakeholder management. At whatever level, what do you do typically when things don't go as planned with different stakeholders?
That made me chuckle a little bit, only because I don't know if anything ever goes as planned in project programs and portfolios, right? I mean, that's the nature of the game. So the stakeholder management, again, at all levels is, it starts with number one is knowing your sponsor. Who's sponsoring this project or program? Or in case of portfolios, it's who's the portfolio owner, really. It starts with there in the understanding your sponsor, understanding the critical success factors from your sponsor, making sure you have KPIs, your key performance indicators determined, so again, you're heading down the right path. All of those, as you bring stakeholders on, you're making sure they understand those too. They understand which goals and objectives, the critical success factors, the KPIs, and making sure, also you are going to many times run into stakeholders who have competing priorities or are pulling your program or your portfolio in different directions. And at that time is where your stakeholder management becomes very critical. Then you're going to pull people into a room and you're going to walk through again, going back to the goals and objectives. This is why we're doing it. And this is how it's going to make us successful. Depending on the level of your stakeholders, you will have to, at times, it will be beyond you to resolve those, and you're going to pull in other leaders, maybe your leader, or pull in your sponsor. But the first step is to make sure they understand, the goals and the objectives and the why and the critical success factors. There are other methods too in terms of managing stakeholders' expectations, is letting them vote. Right? Understand if stakeholder A says, feature number 4 is priority 1 for me, versus the other one says, no, feature number 10 is priority. Now you're trying to figure out how you're going to prioritize. Now you go and do some real, what I would say, scientifically assigned weights, and do different ways of how you can manage these stakeholder expectations. So, and I think agile teams do this quite a bit in their day to day, right? You're looking at things, you're assigning weights to know, how your product backlog goes. The same methods can be used for managing your stakeholder expectations. The rate C charts are another big, very valuable tool. Who's responsible, accountable, consulted. I think there's a new S in there for supported and informed. So people who are responsible and accountable are the people, that you're going to be working with in helping, bring resolution your stakeholder issues. And like I said, last but not the least, there will be times when you'll have to take it. It's going to be outside of your realm. You've employed all the tools, you've done RACIs, you've done stakeholder management with using some kind of a weightage from the features. You've done explaining the critical success factors, the key objectives. And at some point, you're going to go to your sponsor and say, I need your help. I need your help because I have competing stakeholders. And as a sponsor, I need you to step in. Mm-hmm. And as long as you have that good relationship with your sponsor throughout your life cycle of the project, most sponsors are going to be very happy to step in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Now, my ears, when listening to you, maybe because of my own experience as well, when listening to you, I can just basically hear, okay, fine. First of all, the business sponsor, that's the critical piece there. Now, the level of leadership of that business sponsor, whether as a program leader, right, for that initiative, or as a portfolio lead, or that sponsor is in an SLT or an ELT and so forth. Now, depending, and that expands what they can help you curtail or control, right? The sphere of concern increases, right?
Yes.
And that could be way beyond you as a project manager or a program manager, and you would need that that support to help you wade through.
Right. And typically, if your project is part of a program or a portfolio, then it becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you go to your program manager or your portfolio leader and you say, hey, I need help here. Because there is a larger purpose for your project that is beyond just that project, and they can help you. But you're right, or go to your leader who could be your coach, who's going to help you through some of these things.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. All right. So at this point, let's get a bit personal. Would you happen to recall a moment in your career that sort of like was a defining either a defining moment, a defining project, or a defining time in your career that really made the difference for you?
Actually, I will say there are two, if that's okay sharing. One is, and it goes back to this whole idea of the sponsor. Right. That was one of the lessons I learned very early on in my career, is that if your project sponsor is not actively involved and you're not able to have those conversations with your sponsor and both of you are not tied at the hip, then you may be doing everything you can to make the project successful, but you're going to run into a lot of issues because most of the times your project is not a singular independent project that's happening anywhere. There is a purpose for it, right? It's connected to some other outcomes that the company is looking for. Getting resources, which are usually, and not usually, always in every place I've been in my 25 plus years, the company never has enough resources for all projects. And if you don't have a sponsor that who's actively engaged, you're likely not going to be getting those resources because the other people looking at it saying, you know what? It's okay. Nobody really cares about the project. The sponsor's not involved. So I'm not going to give you the resources. So very early on, I had that experience and learned from that, right? That's why we have these experiences. So we can learn from them. Learned from that in, that point on, having the right sponsor, the critical success factor, the goals, all of those became paramount. The other defining, I would say, would be very early on, again, I would say maybe about 15 to 16 years ago, I had the opportunity to, I was asked to set up the PMO for a brand new business unit in this, Fortune 100 company that I worked for. And I was a little nervous because A, I had never established a PMO before. B, I did feel good about being asked because that said that leadership had some confidence and trust in my capabilities. However, PMOs typically, not always, depending on the company and place and maturity, PMOs don't always have a good reputation. In many places, PMOs are just looked as process and governance and policing.
Yes.
Again, like I said, it depends on the company. It depends on the maturity of the organization. So I was sort of advised a little against it by my mentors. There was few who said, go for it. The others who said, don't do it because you're going to be looked at as a process person and that you didn't do any delivery that year. But I went ahead and took the plunge because the way I looked at it, it felt like I've been managing projects and programs and I'm going to continue to manage projects and programs in my future. But how many times am I going to be offered the opportunity to set up a PMO from ground up? So I took that opportunity. It was wildly successful. My reputation in the company really went up a few notches right after that. And, having done that so early on in my career also gave me the, the confidence that I can do this. And this is something, because if you think about it, projects, programs, portfolios, they're all about the art and the science. And I know you've asked several different questions around, the success, what makes a project success or a program or a portfolio. You've got to balance the art and the science. So when you look at PMOs, they are the science part of it. They focus more on the science part of it, right? The governance, the discipline, the process. But when you can combine that plus what you've delivered in your career, the complex programs and portfolios, then you're actually speaking to showing to people that you can do both. You've mastered both sides of what it takes to manage large complex work.
That is, people get the opportunity to be thrown at the fire, and sometimes they like it and embrace it. Sometimes they run, they fall under the weight sometimes, and it's beautiful to have that experience and wade through, not just wade through, come out on top. That's wonderful. It wasn't until I got into enterprise, I was like, okay, they're trying to structure things and avoid waste and so forth. And you find out there's an opportunity to do something more than being a project manager. So that's beautiful that you had that experience, and that definitely left an impression, but helped you to lead bigger initiatives and transformations. You have a bunch of aspiring PMs or even new PMs and some experienced PMs, listening to you, and you wanted to advise them on how to lead, how to get into the next phase. The world is changing, the world is transforming, how they should approach life and work and their profession and their career as project managers seeking to lead initiatives successfully. What is one piece of advice you would want to share with them?
The one piece of advice I would say would be, I think what I said in my last response would be to balance the art and science. Because project management, as much as from a PMI perspective, it's all science, right? But you're dealing with human beings. You're trying to lead a lot of people from different parts of the organization to come together for this one initiative. Most of the times, I would say 99% of the times, those people are not reporting to you. So you're influencing without authority. So the mastering of that and the right balance for every project looks different. The right balance for every team looks different. So really figure out what is the right balance of the art and the science that you have to use to lead that project or that program or that portfolio. Because that is what will, like I said, there is the science aspect of it, but what will really make or break is going to be how do you blend all of that together.
Yes. Awesome. Yep. So basically the science, you could be great with the science, but when it comes to the art of delivering in real life, real world, use case scenarios, what presents differ, and how you wade through that will definitely set you apart. Thank you so much for that, Kavita. At this point, would there be any final words that you have for the audience?
Yeah. So Justice, what I would like to do, if you're okay with it, is when I left my last team or my last organization, on the last day, I sent them some nuggets. As their leader, I was leading them through for several years. So I felt it was important for me to leave them with a few nuggets that I thought would be important for them as, program managers and, product leaders and portfolio leaders. So if you're okay, I would like to read out.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
I'm listening as well.
Thank you. So what I left them with is your project or deliverable is only as good as it looks when a stakeholder pulls it up for status or reference. So let it always speak of your excellence, because remember, your name is on it. Make the process and the tools your best friend. The payback is super high. While important, process and tools do not replace human interactions. Have those conversations first. Always treat each other and your stakeholders with respect, even when holding them accountable. Accountability and collaboration are not mutually exclusive. Do both. Feedback is a gift. Make it feel that way when you give it. Last but not the least, we all win or lose together. There is no I in team.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Someone will go print out what you just, someone will go print. Yeah, definitely. I see that happening. That definitely is valuable. Wow. Wow, experienced PMs, PMO leads, directors, senior directors, VPs, all initiative drivers at different levels. I see them putting that up and reading through that regularly. I'm sure you would leave many of your former team members, enterprise team members inspired by that. Thank you so much for sharing that with the world. I really appreciate that. At this point, do you have any product, service, or workshop coming up shortly that should interest the audience, or how best can the audience reach you?
The best way to reach me is LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, so find me, send me a request. Would love to hear your feedback on what you think if you found this session valuable. Anything you would like to discuss. So project program management, portfolio management, PMOs. There's so many versions of PMOs, TPMOs, PPMOs, agile project offices. All of that is a passion of mine. I've literally spent a big chunk of my career doing this kind of work. So I would love to hear from people who do that. So LinkedIn is the best way. Product or service, something is in the works. So watch out. LinkedIn will be the place where I will post it. So you should soon, in a few weeks, see that come out. And again, like I said, reach out to me. I will be happy to have a conversation. This is a favorite topic of mine, so I'll be very happy to talk about this with anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure to give a thumbs up and notify and repost whenever you have specific packages, products, services coming up. But even from the baseline of being able to provide support, advice, consulting for program, portfolio, PMO setup and all that, they can easily just reach out to you first of all on LinkedIn. Awesome. All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, we ask that you leave a comment. First of all, sharing what resonated with you the most. We value your feedback because your success as an IT project lead and initiative driver matters not just to us alone, it matters to the world because the world will be a better place for it. Don't just think about your enterprise as, a profit-making machine alone. What they produce, what they build gets into the world, and it really does benefit some. So please, being an initiative driver is a beautiful thing. Above all, never forget, every man is the architect of his own fortunes. Thank you. Until our next episode, be great.